Welcome, everybody. We're just going to let people in from the waiting room and then we'll get started. We're going to mute everybody. It's not that we don't want to hear your lovely voices. We just have a lot to cover and we want to hear from the candidates tonight, but we will have the chat function available. So feel free.
No, I want to eat.
I'm going to mute Dr. Loudon because she's talking. But we will get started here. Did you hear that too? We'll just give a few minutes because there's still people coming in. So we'll just do that. Jeannie, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We have about 30 people in. Jen, what do you think? You're letting them in. You think it's fair?
Yep, I think right now I don't show anyone in the waiting room.
Okay, great. We're going to get started then. Hello, everybody. My name is Megan Sweeney. I am the founder of Power Up, and we are a grassroots coalition that believe in civic engagement. And we believe that civic engagement is the key to a representative democracy. So we're here essentially to get everybody excited about the role they play in town government. Welcome. Get rid of this here. This is our steering committee. I love these people. We have been together for just over a year working diligently to present outreach efforts and educational efforts. So these people, I can't tell you how important they are to me. They help us and help our efforts be guided by brilliance, creativity, and a love of our town, which is really important. It has been an honor to work with this group of people. Sue Sullivan, Terry Toro, Nellie Now, Jen Schaffner, and Jeannie Lampkin. And it is just a pleasure to work with them and have a little bit of fun while we're at it as well. The more voters, we believe, the more the voters understand about their role in governance and democracy, the more engaged they become. And the community is that much stronger for it. This is our first year, as I mentioned, formally organized, and this is our very first candidate conversation. The community response has been overwhelming and inspiring, so we will keep presenting events as long as you guys are interested, so thank you. Two of these people I think should be noted on our steering committee are Jen Schaffner, who was a former school committee member. She has now been appointed by the governor to sit on the Marblehead Housing Authority Board. Terry Toro is the president of the Marblehead Employees Union and the labor representative for the Democratic Town Committee here in Marblehead. And she is also running to be our Essex County District 8 representative. So it's a pretty amazing group of people. Let's get started. Jeannie and I will be your facilitators for this evening. There are, if you can believe it, 15 days before elections. I can't believe it. It just seems like it's happening too fast. Tonight, what we're talking about is, what is your vision for Marblehead and how will we get here? This is the foundation for our session.
No, I want that.
And our candidates are aware of this as well. Our objective is to celebrate these candidates, inform and engage our voters, and set the stage for a huge June 21st voter turnout. Our goals tonight, like I said, inform and inspire the participation in town elections. We'll have the welcome, which we are here now. Our first candidate to meet will be the light candidate, Jean-Jacques. And then we'll meet our select board candidates. And then obviously we will close with how to make a plan for voting. Jeannie,
right, so
I will pass off to you.
Thanks, Megan. Before we get started, hi to everyone. We thought that it would be fun to spice up our election conversation with a little bit of a surprise question for the candidates who will be talking with us tonight. And I realize that we have some folks that will be on tomorrow night, and we're just going to raise the bar. We're going to want even better answers to this question, no repeats. So I think we're just going to ask Erin and Alexa and Brett and Jean-Jacques. We'll just bring you all off mute, and we just want to we love being hometown tourists. We all know we love this town. So now is your chance to like give us some good insight our place. Like, what's your favorite place to bring visitors to Marblehead? Jean-Jacques, why don't you lead us off? What's your Marblehead favorite place?
Sure. Well, thank you for that. Unexpected, but love to for so long. Get a sense of history in town. Get a sense of, can look at the harbor. The best time I find is midwinter when the wind is blowing. That's a good time in Marblehead.
All right, we love that. Midwinter, Fort Sewell. How about Brett? Where do you want to take us in Marblehead?
All right, I'll go to the opposite side, and I love going to Chandler Hovey Park by the lighthouse. I mean, it's just to see actually Abbott Hall from that distance, and all the church steeples. It's just, and all the boats. It's just an unbelievable view. So that's where I love to take people, and especially, if you want to go there for a picnic, I mean, which I think a lot of people do when the weather gets warmer, it's also a great place. Lots of benches, lots of places to spread out. So that's a great place just to sit down, have a nice little picnic dinner, socialize. And so that's my favorite place to take people.
I like that. So we're gonna sort of look across the harbor. Alexa, how about you? Where do you want to bring us to your favorite Marblehead place? Could be food too. Could be I'm not doesn't have to be just a site. We're up for anything.
Yeah, so thank you. I think that can you guys hear me okay?
Definitely.
Great.
All right, great. Thanks. I was having a little bit of internet disconnection. I just want to make sure I'm actually coming through. So I am over by Red's Pond, and that to me is one of my favorite spots, more so because it's one of the reasons why we settled in the area that we did. And I really enjoy Old Town. I really enjoy taking people to walk around the area. I love the signs on the houses. I love the story behind them and the history behind them. And to me, that it's just such a perfect little spot. And with Old Barrel Hill there, there's just so much history behind it. So for me, that's probably one of my favorites. And it's also walkable from my house. So that helps.
We like all of that. It's good. I love it. Thank you, guys. So we're gonna. I think Erin had to take care of stuff because she knew her slot was a little later. So we'll hold that question for her because our goal is to fill up our summer plans with all the hometown tourist advice that you all are going to give us. But without further ado, I have the great pleasure to have a conversation with Jean-Jacques about all things lighting. And in the balance of my family, my husband, who is an electrical engineer by training, should be doing this conversation. But if he was, we wouldn't have any other conversations and we would be here all night. So I'm gonna be more representative of every person in Marblehead who knows just a little bit about the ways that we keep our streets bright and our houses warm and shiny. So Jean-Jacques, welcome and thank you. And for everyone that's listening in, Jean-Jacques had some Wi-Fi challenges earlier, so if he jumps back to just no video, it's so that we can all hear him well. So hopefully the video will work. But let us just kind of get right into it. Can you maybe introduce yourself a little bit to our colleagues and our friends and our citizens tonight and tell them a little bit about yourself and your vision for Marblehead?
Only thank you. Thank you. Great to be with
I think you're going to want to go off. Jean-Jacques,
I'm here because Marblehead is a really great place to live. Okay, I'm going to turn off my video, hoping that you can hear me better. It's no disrespect, but sorry, my connection doesn't seem to be up to snuff. So sorry about that.
No worries.
Marblehead is really a lovely place to live, as you can tell from my accent or know from my background. If you know me a little bit, it's a choice. I grew up in France. I'm a newly minted American citizen, and I followed a girl to the community that is very vibrant, very engaged. I started by going to a choir here at church, and got more and more involved. And I hope to continue to be able to make Marblehead a better place to live for ourselves and also for the future generation, with a lot of things hanging in the balance. And when we talk about energy, that has a lot of implications because of climate change, and our town is not going to be exempt from what is going on in the rest of the world.
That's fair. And thanks for juggling the Wi-Fi challenges. I know that's very stressful.
I mean, no disrespect by hiding people.
Yeah, and I think everyone gets that. So we've all been in that spot where we're trying to make it work. And we won't add that to the question of, is there anything a light commissioner will do about better internet? Because that's just a reach. We'll leave for another night. But maybe we can get into a little bit of, and some folks may not even know exactly what does the Light Commission do and what does a Light Commissioner do. So as you've looked into running for this position, how do you define the role and the responsibility for being a Light Commissioner?
Right. I think you're right. Do not necessarily know the distinction between the light department, which is our small group of 20 people, which is the utility, and the light commission, which is the board that oversees what the light department does. And we have got to know that by law, actually, the fact that we are a town with a municipal light department means that the commission and the light department are actually very separate from the rest of the town government. And that's by purpose, so that the planning for the electricity supply and all the infrastructure that we need to have not be subject to political whims of one or the other. And we are meant to be separate from town government to be able to have a long-term view. Now, that means also that for
I think you're gonna have to go off the video again there.
the views of the town to be represented, the election of the Light Commission is very critical because they will not necessarily bylaw.
Yeah, Jean-Jacques, you're still kind of breaking up a bit. Do you want to go off video? I think it'll be better for people to just hear you because we're missing a few words. So if you can tell us a little bit, we'll just pick up from as you look at this, knowing that the commission is separate from, it oversees the light department and it's sort of separate from other parts of town government. What do you think about in terms of the responsibilities of members of the commission that you see as priorities? And maybe you can lead right into and what expertise or experience do you have that you think really uniquely positions you to meet those responsibilities?
Yeah. So, my background, I'm an engineer by training, and I have a good understanding of energy issues, energy markets, the technologies that are involved. For a long part of my career, I financed clean energy projects. And by doing so, when you have some money, government money in this particular case, and people want to have your money, they always try to make the project look very nice, and you have to ask a lot of questions. So being able to ask questions, trying to go behind the scene and understand what's going on has been my work for many, many years. I've been going to the Light Commission's meetings for the last 4 years, and they are open to the public. The next one, by the way, is tomorrow, and it's really great if people do participate, so don't hesitate to come to the building on Commercial Street, or you can also participate remotely. The other part of my career is I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry, where taking a new product to the market will take anywhere between 10 and 15 years, and then you're starting to sell for another 5, 10, 15 years. Long-term planning is absolutely paramount in that industry, just as it is in the utility world, because the investments are quite expensive and will last with us for a long time. So it is my view that it is very, very important for Marblehead to have a strategic plan in the light department, and we do not have one. I would like, as commissioner, to bring that on board. I think I bring a different view from other members of the commission, and I think hopefully I will work very well with them, just as I work very well with Joe Kowalik, who is a good guy and trying his best.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jean-Jacques. So here's, I'd like to ask this question. If you can imagine your best friend or the boss who loved you most, what would they say is the thing why Marblehead voters should vote for you?
Yeah, so again, hiding myself, not to be shy about replying, but so that you can hear me better. I think, in terms of what I bring is I'm curious by nature. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I will have a lot of questions to try to get to the answers that all of Marblehead needs. People who know me also, and that has been also part of the work I have done in my career. People know that I will listen to other viewpoints. That's part of my curiosity. I suppose I want to know what the other people think and how they react in the different situations that we're going to be facing. I think different viewpoints are strengths. They are not it's not my way or the highway. When one tries to see a problem from somebody else's perspective, a solution that one might not have chosen initially might come to light, which might be even better than the solution that one thought of at first. So strong community engagement, I think, is something that I really very much hope for. I think the light department is uniquely placed actually to have conversation with all the residents of Marblehead and could make use of many avenues to do so, which we currently are not doing. You get a bill from the water and sewer department with a little pamphlet explaining things. From the light department, you get a bill, pretty much dry bill, please pay. We could explain a lot of stuff there. And please come to the light commission meetings.
Yeah.
So I love great advocacy. Thank you for that. I'm going to take us to a little bit more of a question specific to the Light Commission. And this might, all those 4 years of voluntarily attending their meetings might pay off here. Can you maybe share with our audience your sense of how well our infrastructure is capable of supporting expected increases in electric vehicles and heat pumps, as you kind of understand how we're situated today and the sort of demand spikes that we can all see coming?
Yeah, great question. The answers are not all that simple, right? They are never completely black or white. Currently, whenever we flip the switch, we get electricity, except on very, very, very rare occasions. And the light department is doing a good job of supplying power. At least that's what we see on the surface. There are some parts of some of our circuits which are unstable, and that comes already from an increase in demand. Some people have talked to me about that, and the light department know that very well. If we jump forward, 10 or 15 years, there will be many, many more electric vehicles in town, EVs or heat pumps, as you said. If we had half of our cars, there are 22,000 cars in Marblehead. If we had half of our cars be EVs, the simple answer is the grid will fry. We will not be able to supply the electricity we need. The question that I have, and to which nobody has put an answer yet, is at which level does that start to become an issue? We have maybe 200 or 300 EVs currently in town. Is it when we reach 500? Is it when we reach 1,000? We don't know that. And again, that's a reflection of the fact that we have not done demand forecast. We have not done investment planning for the infrastructure, and we're driving blind a little bit. Just in case anybody this call were to doubt that the peak that you're mentioning will come, Buick, the car company, just announced last week that they are going to only sell electric vehicles in 2030. They're not suicidal. They don't want to commit suicide. They are going to sell what the market wants. And they understand that, in 7 years, their market is going to be all electric. Are we going to be ready in 7 years? That's the whole question. That's what I want to work for.
Wow, you've certainly got my attention now. That's super helpful, and even I can even explain that to my husband. So I'm proud of myself for hanging on that answer. So thanks, Jean-Jacques. Can maybe we take a widen the aperture a little bit and look at sort of how you come into the commission role, thinking about making trade-offs and the competing priorities, because the amount of investment that could be needed is always going to outstrip the resources available. But we are particularly sensitive to that. We've got a significant chunk of our townsfolk and families on fixed income and can't really afford to have, you know, pie in the sky dreams coming from every department everywhere, right? We hear this always at every meeting, like we want to be good fiscal managers. So what's the mind frame that you bring into being able to balance competing priorities, urgencies with ability to pay for everything and to keep the rate structure at a place where people do get a bill they don't think about and they pay it because it doesn't usually shock them to the point where they start making phone calls?
Right, that's a very good question, and clearly we want to, and I want to keep the rates as low as possible. We've got to know that the rates are going to increase because of the fossil fuels that we are using, and the wholesale electricity that we buy on the ISO New England has nearly doubled in price in the first quarter of this year. It has gone up by 83% in the first quarter alone. So there is no way that the rates are not going to increase because, again, more than half of our electricity comes from the grid, goes up by 83%. You know, something needs to be done. So that being said, both on the infrastructure side and on the rate side, there are many levers that we can hopefully pull to try and do both, because we don't have an option of, you know, not supplying electricity to some people, not having the infrastructure to supply, just like, you know, it's not an option to make it so expensive that people cannot afford to heat their homes, turn on the light, or charge their cars. But as I said, there are many levers that can help us both improve our infrastructure and also make savings that will help us keep our rates low. And I will just mention three things. There are more, but three which are very important. Having long-term contracts with renewable energy sources like the wind farm that are being built offshore. Those are low cost and not subject to price increases based on what's going on in Europe or elsewhere in the world. They will insulate us from those price increases that, unfortunately, because we didn't act sooner, are going to be coming our way now very soon. Putting in place battery storage in town at the utility scale will help us in many ways. And it's going to pay for itself in about 2 years, tells us NREL, which is one of the energy lab from the Department of Energy, from which we commissioned a study in 2018. So this is an investment that, yes, we will have to carry, but will soon allow us to save money. And at the same time, will help us in times of strong use of electricity in town, the peak demand time, by shaving that peak. There are other ways to shave that peak, and that seems to be maybe a gimmick to some people, but that peak hour in August, when it's muggy and hot and everybody has their air conditioner on, is extremely important for determining our rates. By lowering that peak, we will lower the rate for everybody for the whole year. And I can go into the details which are technical, but just those three levers, some of them are educational and really honestly won't cost very much and will help to keep the rates low. Some will pay for themselves, some will help us diversify our sources of energy and help keep the rates low. So again, I don't think it's an either or, that we have the right timing for them and introduce them in town.
That's super inspiring and really helpful to understand that there are some things that are within reach and not all of them are you know, massive and complex solutions to our challenges. We are going to wrap up our questions with you at this point, Jean-Jacques. I'm really glad that I've had the chance to chat with you. Thank you for preparing and coming on this call. I know it's a busy season with 15 days to Election Day. Really appreciate your time and your agility in popping video to audio to try and make things work. We see your flexibility in action tonight. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I've put my email in the chat. If anybody wants to continue this discussion offline, I'll be glad to take it offline with all of you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So Megan, I think I'm going to bring this back to you, but I believe Erin has joined us and I'm not letting up on my pursuit of town knowledge. So Erin, when we first started, I know you had to step off for a minute and we did have one surprise question and we're not letting you out.
Okay.
So if you can back us up, Megan, we'll you take us back to our opening slide, because we want to provide value to every Marbleheader on this call tonight. So the question is, where is your favorite place in Marblehead to bring visitors? So we're collecting all the hot spots. So where do you like to go?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I have been bringing visitors to Marblehead like forever. I would, if it's the summertime, I'm taking them on the boat cruise all around. I love Fort Sewell because it really captures like the history and then the vantage point that you get to see the town from there.
Okay, so I'm gonna, because one of our other contestants this evening picked Fort Sewell, but I'm gonna give you two questions now.
Sure.
What season is your favorite Fort Sewell season? When do you most like to go there?
Summer.
Okay, and of the other folks that are presenting their candidacies tonight, who else voted for Fort Sewell? Was it Brett, Jean-Jacques, or Alexa?
I was Chandler
You're in the
Hobby.
hot seat.
You gave it away. I'm gonna say Alexa. No.
Nope, it was Jean-Jacques.
See,
Midwinter. All right, thank you for playing.
Yes, thanks for
We'll
bearing
meet
with
there,
my
Erin. We'll
technical
meet there.
issues.
All right, Megan, take us away.
okay, great. Well, hello again, and welcome to our select board candidates, Alexa, Brett, Erin, and Jimmy Full was going to be here tonight. He sends his humble apologies, but somewhere around 6:30, you know how it goes, the evening sort of fell apart. So I have his contact information, which I will drop in the chat. And he is very excited to talk to or connect with each of us. So please take advantage of that when you can. All right. So we are going to do the same thing that we did with Jean-Jacques and ask the same type of questions. And I will just point to, like we did with earlier with the candidates, I'll say, Alexa, how about you answer this question and go around that way so there's no awkward silences. So need to know about your vision for Marblehead. I find this so important for me as just a regular voter, a community member, to understand where we're going and where are you going to take us. And so I'm really thirsty for this knowledge. Alexa, I'll start with you just because you're there with the A. So let's go. What's your vision?
Yeah, so I mean, I think my vision is really continuing the great legacy of our town. And, you know, we have a very unique location. And I think that's really important to that vision, and a lot of rich history, which is also important. You know, we need smart actions that address our current and our future challenges. We need to embrace what our history is of our town, but be open and willing to explore the new opportunities that will and have to present themselves as we, you know, keep moving into the future. And, you know, just really highlighting our unique form of government and just the framework of the town, while also, you know, allowing for that growth to happen. So that's, you know, just really allowing for those things that have to flow into that conversation with, you know, just inclusion and also sustainability, and recognizing that we can incorporate those things into the rich history of the town that we have, while preserving those things that are important too.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Well, and leadership helps that, right? You just, as your leader, you set that tone, and especially as a select board is our executive leadership. I think you're the second only to the people. So it's really important that you have that vision and belief. And I think that guides your policies and your priorities. So thank you.
Yeah.
What role do you think you'll play or could you play in promoting that vision?
Is this for me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I was still talking.
You're still on, baby. Go.
Okay, great. Well, you touched on it for a second, but I think it's important to say that, really the role of the select board is, overseeing and providing effective leadership. And I think that's a big part of implementing that vision. You are looking at the information that comes before you. You're making decisions based on facts, based on data, and really taking that information that you're getting from the citizens, that you're being presented from so many different ways, and taking that to execute that vision and turn those things around. And there's lots of different ways that actually plays out in the day-to-day operations. And part of that, like I said, really starts with that leadership piece, because that's, one of the hallmarks of the position.
100%. Yeah. And you will, again, as the leaders of our town, you do set the tone and where we lead. So thank you for that. Brett, I think I'll move to you and ask you the same question. What is your vision for Marblehead, and how can we get there?
Again, it's a good question. Our town overall doesn't have a mission, vision, value, statements. There are certain boards and commissions that have some out there, but we're missing it from a top-down approach. I think my vision would be something along the idea that I want the town of Marblehead to seek to deliver the highest quality of life for our community, our citizens, our businesses and guests, while preserving our history, traditions, and natural resources. I think so. That would be my vision, for the town of Marblehead.
And how do you see, as once you're elected, how do you see you kind of taking on that vision and making it something that's a reality for us?
Well, I think to get there it's one of the reasons why I'm running is it is something that Jean-Jacques also indicated, and I think you're going to see that theme here tonight. We just don't have any strategic plan. We don't have any 5-10-year benchmark.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you go to the town website and you look at the town, how it operates, there's a lot of great reports, there's a lot of great information, and there's a lot of great starts, but there's nothing really cohesive that brings it all together that says this is where we are now and this is where we want to go. There's a difference between being busy and business, and right now we're kind of like a rudderless ship, to use kind of a Marblehead analogy. We need to know where we're going, not only from the, so that way the top and all the different departments and boards below can know where to go, and that we're all rowing in the same direction. Otherwise, we're just going to be going in circles out in Marblehead Harbor. So I really want to have a strategic plan with benchmarks that holds everyone accountable, the department heads, the boards and commissions who are elected, and more importantly, us as elected officials. We should ultimately be held accountable to the citizens. And that's just not happening right now. And so I think it's really promoting that strategic plan that tells us where we're going to go. And that's going to be a board, it's going to be citizens, there's going to be a lot of people part of that. So it's not just going to be the select board, it's going to be everyone that's going to decide. And that's what I'm looking forward to helping to create if I'm elected to this.
I like that. And why I like that is because, and this is one of the conversations that we've had over the years, when we as voters and community members understand what each board and committee does, then we can think about our skill set and say, hey, Brett, this is where I think I could help the Board of Selectmen, or this is where I think I could help Harbors and Water, or whatever the board is that you're looking for. And so by offering that vision and that sort of framework, I feel like we're going to get more volunteers and more people wanting to be directly involved and to help you, right, to get to that vision. So thank you. Aaron Noonan, I will take you next. What would you say your vision for Marblehead is, and how can we help you get there, and how will you lead us there?
Thanks, Megan. So this is actually the only thing that I wrote out prepared for this candidate forum tonight.
Perfect.
I really took it as like an academic exercise after you sent that list of what is a vision statement? I'm not a business background, so I'm like, what's different? What's a vision statement versus a mission statement?
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good exercise. So my vision statement then is the town of Marblehead is a unique coastal community steeped in history back to its enormous contributions to America's independence and the American Revolution. We, the elected members of the select board, shall preserve Marblehead's legacy of democracy by providing thoughtful and executive leadership, fostering civic engagement, and actively promoting an inclusive and welcoming community for all. We will preserve our natural resources, public assets, and unique quality of life on the New England coast, while providing effective government services and quality education. We will shape a future that honors our past, but enriches the way of life for its present citizens and those yet to come.
I love it. And you know that each of you have brought forward your love of our history and a connection to that, which is so very important. But then you're also opening up to the vision of what's next in the future. So thank you for providing that. Now, to bring it a little more concrete, how do you see yourself as a select board member making that a reality for us?
Well, I think that I of myself as an over preparer. I like to take in all of the views of different people and perspectives and synthesize that. And like as Brett had spoken to about strategic planning, I totally agree. I think that there's so much even just short-term planning that we could do. I think that our select board should be really putting out an annually in August, really should be setting townwide goals and establishing priorities for the next year, maybe 2 years even. We should be, setting policy and goals and objectives that relate to our priorities for the year, and we should set them out clearly. I bring a background in law, appellate advocacy and trial practice. And I think that being accessible is really important. Accessibility is really important. And I think it's really important for us as board members to network with other groups in town, other boards in town, and make sure that we're always mindful to represent all members of the community when we make decisions.
Thank you. That's a very thoughtful answer, and I appreciate that. And it is hard to try and to connect with the 16, 17, 18,000 different voters that we have. But I think that you have made a really good effort this year in connecting. I know whenever I've reached out to you, you've always been accessible. And so I appreciate that. But I also think that's really important, that if you have this vision that you are accessible, because again, back to the volunteering and the skill set that we have in this town, it's amazing, the backgrounds and experiences that can contribute. So thank you for that answer. The next question is more on roles and responsibilities. It's sort of a good segue, I think, from where you are. I'll let Aaron off the hook, and I'll put Brett on the hot seat this time and say, Brett, how do you define the role and responsibility of a select board member? That goes to Brett.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. It's going to sound a little boring, but in reality, the select board is really really the body that does the general supervision, over all, matters really relating to the town, at least to the departments under it. And it really does the day-to-day operations, and it appoints, individuals to the different boards, and commissions. It sounds boring, but that's very important. And it's because of the fact that they do appoint people to the various boards and commissions, and you want to get the right people. And these are people who shouldn't have lifetime, automatic lifetime appointments. There's got to be a way that we assess and we have turnover on a more regular basis. Again, as you mentioned earlier, we had Article 39 at the town meeting that failed by less than 10 votes, and we had an active select board member speak against it, not saying to alter it, not saying to change it, but speak against it. And that's really shameful, because that goes against an independent report, the Clifton report, which also said that basically all the departments it looked at were missing roles and responsibilities, and that those that had them they were so outdated, they just were ineffective. We need to have those roles and responsibilities so that people can come in, and that takes leadership. And right now, that's why I'm coming back after being off for 5 years, is because I just don't see that leadership there. Because I just don't see them doing that day-to-day operations and that long-term planning and trying to get the people, because select board should really be getting people excited to want to participate and get involved. And I just don't see that. So I think, that's my general view. Again, it's a boring job, but I just want to give a little attention to one part that I think is just very, very important. And that's something I'm hoping to change.
Well, it is, and especially with the overrides coming up, which we'll touch on in a few minutes, but it is important to have at least an idea of what your powers and duties are, so that you can make sure to manage such a large a project that's could be coming up starting in whenever it is, June, that we vote on it. So thank you for that. Alexa, I'll put you on the hot seat next. And how would you define the role and responsibility of a select board member?
Yeah, so I think from a global perspective, it's really about leadership and effective leadership, like I highlighted earlier. But just to reiterate, it's taking that information, getting the facts, getting the reason, and then making effective decisions. And that leads into some of the other roles that are just dictated by the position. There are town and office appointments. One of the other big things is the town meeting for the warrant, taking a look at that, approving that, signing warrants, looking at paying bills and permit licenses and grants, and one of the other big responsibilities is really taking a look and setting policy, and that provides a lot of direction. So it is far reaching, and that's important. And, you're coordinating with your town administrator, which is the person that's coordinating with your department. So overseeing that relationship and how all of these small but important responsibilities start to intertwine and become bigger responsibilities. So, the role itself is pretty clearly defined as to what the responsibilities are, but the individual pieces of that and how that is executed is really important. And at the end of the day, it does really fall back to effective leadership and what that means and how you're able to make that connection to go back and really implement what those roles and responsibilities are.
That's fair. And I think that's true is it's I think it's by Massachusetts will tell you what exactly the role and responsibility of a select board member is, but to bring it here and to actuality and how do we make it work day to day is tricky. So yeah. You're right, relying on that relationship with the town administrator would be pivotal, because that person is now connecting, like you said, to all the department heads and to all the people. That's kind of set up how we are now as the first point of contact. And, instead of getting right to the select board member, was through the town administrator. So it definitely is lots of complexities, I guess, within that role as well. So thank you for that thoughtful answer.
Yes.
Erin Noonan.
Yes.
I believe you're next.
Thanks. So I think this is a great question, and I'm going to get a little granular on it, because I think that we have such a unique role on our select board because of the decentralized nature of our government, that I think maybe a lot of residents, I know actually from fielding calls and having to refer on to other elected boards that have autonomy over those issues, that the role of the select board in Marblehead is somewhat unique, in that we're responsible for public safety operations, various departments like highway and tree, financial services, building inspection, engineering, harbor master, and like council on aging. But there's a whole swath of other elected boards. So I think this is a great question, like particularly for Marblehead, because I'm constantly like, well, that falls under the jurisdiction of this other elected board. Yes. So beyond those are the, I think, I think that's, I probably missed somebody, but that's the large departments that, you know, we have oversight on as the board. And then beyond that, the role of the board of select member is to, you know, we, like the board itself enters into contracts on the town's behalf. We issue licenses and permits, and we appoint residents to serve on all the volunteer boards, such as disabilities, the finance committee, conservation committee. We are responsible for hiring a town administrator to oversee the day-to-day general operations. We have a new town administrator that started today, Thatcher Keyser, who I really hope has a successful and smooth transition, and that everyone, you know, can kind of see in him what we saw in his potential. We also, our major role on the select board is to participate in like the budget process. You know, we should be we directly review budget requests. We should be monitoring the finances of the town throughout the year with the finance director. We should be providing input on capital improvement projects, and beyond that, play an active role in issues and policies that have implications for the financial health of the town.
100%. Yeah. Are you frozen? Are you okay?
Oh, no, I'm fine. And
I was like, oh, no.
I don't want to be repetitive of what my fellow candidates have said, because what they said is also equally true. So I'm just trying to like,
No, you did.
not be repetitive.
No, you got, it's great because all of you are adding to whatever, you know, that what the previous person said. Now it works out perfectly, because I think what we're doing is providing the context of what it is a board of selectmen does, because each of you gave a different answer, but touched on another area that you are responsible for. So I think it's helping the audience at least, and it's helping me as well to envision what you see your role as. I think what we'll do now is switch into a little bit more, because those are the same questions that we asked Jean-Jacques. I think we'll switch over and let Jeannie ask you a couple of more board specific questions. And Jeannie, are you ready for that?
Thanks, Megan. I'm here. So it's interesting that each of you in answering questions touched upon some things in the next questions that we're going to talk about. So for the amount of time that our Power Up Steering Committee spent thinking of questions, because we have a really big question bank of questions we like filed in the circular file, because we're like, no, that's not a good question. But we really got, I think where we're all connecting is the sense of, you know, leadership at a board level is interesting and tricky, because you're not managing and you're not doing, and you're not in the formal chain of command. And so questions about leadership at the board level are even trickier, because we can't ask you how you would manage and how you would do. So this next question from the three of you, and we'll just sort of go round robin, and Erin already sort of gave us a sense of like you kind of build on each other, is when you think of your role as a select board member, you have, you know, the new town administrator is your principal, you know, direct leader that you have to sort of guide to then take vision and have them turn vision into strategy, into action. What's your role as a select board member to direct the new town administrator to ensure accuracy, transparency, and that the way that you have all stated these visions of the town we all want to live in a governance context actually comes to life? So that's our big lofty one of leadership as a board member, and how do you lead leaders to make our town all the things we have all agreed we want it to be. And maybe Brett, because you are in my line of sight on my Zoom, I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. Let's just, first and foremost, individually, we can't ask the town administrator, you know, to do anything. You know, you have to remember that there's 5 bosses in this situation. So it's going to take at least a majority, you know, to give direction. Now, I certainly can ask, you know, and I have asked the town administrator for information and then come back to another meeting to present information. In terms of going off and accomplishing something or doing something, it's going to take at least 3, 4, 5 board members to make that happen. So I think that's really what it comes down to, is as a board member, you have to be informed, and you have to convince your other board members that there's a certain direction you want the town to go in, so that way the town administrator can go in that. particular direction. So that's really the pivot, is trying to get at least 2 other colleagues, but you have to do it, remember, an open meeting. You can't do it behind closed doors because of open meeting laws. So it's got to be done, in the public discussion. And so that's where it has to take place. I think that's the trick, is if there's something you want to accomplish individually, you've got to get at least 2 other board members at town administration.
Thank you, Brett. So Alexa, coming to you with we've set the table with leadership through transparency and collaboration. How would you add to that in terms of how to use the position as a select board member to affect and guide our town administrator to execute on the vision?
Yeah, so great question. So, I think Brett did a nice job of explaining the process of government by committee. And I think, there's 2 parts of this. And one of the part is really, you have to continue to ask leading questions to ensure that there's an understanding that the administrator, one, is fully aware of any select board like policies and procedures or any sort of strategies that we've already put into place, and that those have been communicated effectively, and they're, whatever that topic is that you're trying to address, whether it's a point that has to do with accuracy or communication, any of those things. And then the next part of that is really reviewing those policies at a board level, continuing that conversation, starting a new conversation, allowing you to set those priorities that then you can turn around and make sure that clear communication is happening. So it really is a circle of starting at one end, going to the next end, and then coming back and circling back and making sure that what is actually happening or what you think might be happening, the only way to really get that answer is to ask those leading questions, to keep connected, to see what is happening in the day-to-day operations. And then if there is a change of direction that needs to happen, then bringing that back to the board level and resetting those strategies, and then working on communicating that out again.
Great, love this. And so we're adding to that leadership about really questioning. And I know, because I've been on board meetings you have been on, that there's a diligence and homework behind the question, and a questioning with curiosity and empathy and real willingness to learn. And then, as you said, so we're going to add to that for Erin, coming to you, right? So we've got leadership, transparency, collaboration, questioning, doing your homework, communicating. How do you wrap it up? Is that, seasoned select board member of what's really in your bag of tricks as you come as a leader to guide town administrator and the town into executing the vision?
This is a great question. I wanted to thank you, Jeannie, too, because I thought that your lead into this whole question was really thoughtful and spot on, and acknowledging the role and that role with the town administrator and the 5 elected members. So just to add to this, I think that our role in ensuring accuracy and transparency is to ensure our commitment to hybrid meetings to the extent allowable under the law. And to be honest, I think that that's something that every member of our board has embraced. I've not seen nobody has pushed back on that. I think that one thing that I would like to continue to advocate for, and Alexa and I, as fresh women on the board, really advocated for, was being accessible to voters via, having our own email addresses, and really pushing our town administrator, who was wide open to it. It was just that it in the past hadn't been something that was favored, which is to resuming community engagement via alternative methods, whether it's social media or promoting opt-in to town emails. I think that accuracy and transparency can come when we post meeting packets. I've asked throughout the course of the year that certain documents be posted to the website, like, when the independent investigation into the swastika and the police department, I really, requested that be posted on the the town website and made available to folks before our conversation at a meeting. And there was, I didn't have any pushback on it, and it went on. And I think just making sure that, we're engaging with the community in new modern ways, and trying to address the gap of information that I think that has been created by our loss of our beloved reporter. And I'm so grateful that there's a couple of different initiatives out there to step in and help fulfill that informational role, which is so important. But I also think being transparent means not just only when it's politically expedient to do so, which means that you value accountability and, as a value. And so, putting things on the agenda that are getting information out. I ask questions in a meeting, and I know I've seen Alexa do this too, but you're asking questions in a public meeting where I know the answer to, but I want the information to go out to the voters, or not the voters, sorry, but the public, the residents. So I do really feel strongly that it's our duty to be informational and good communicators out to residents.
So I have a page of notes, but I'm really going to wrap up this question with your capstone of accessibility and really sort of accountability and blessings upon us for advanced agendas and materials. Talking to an information nerd, I couldn't be happier to discover that things would be available that you can read and find consistently, and noting your appreciation of email addresses, like how to find people. It shouldn't be like such a mystery, like you're singing to me personally. So I use my soapbox to say thank you for that. So we have another question, and this one's going to put us a little bit into looking forward to the exciting year we're going to have, and June 21, we're going to know who's with us on the ride. We might have an override in the next year, rumor has it. And we're really curious, in a serious vein, of how you view the role of the select board in the process of proposing it, and also overseeing the ride to town meeting and beyond. And if an override were to pass, what's the role of the select board in ensuring transparency and accountability in the implementation? So this is a whopper of a compound question, the way that if you're smart like me and Megan and you're going to limit yourself to 5 questions, you put 400 in the last one. So we just really want you to think about, tell us the story of how we're going to get through a tough time with an override with a select board, that we're going to say, this was hard, this was painful, but it was done well, it was done right. Tell us that story, and we'll go backwards, Erin, so you can lead off on this one.
Sure, yes. So the select board in Massachusetts under the statute has the sole authority to place a Proposition 2.5 question on the ballot. Which is an awesome responsibility. What we need to do what I see the role as, leading a collaborative process, which is like I mentioned earlier, in this town, we are such a decentralized government. So we're really going to have to bridge and have, this is going to mean joint meetings with other elected boards and facilitate a conversation. Under our purview falls the financial services piece, where we'll have a new finance director, hopefully, this summer, onboarding a new finance director, and meeting jointly with the school committee, Rexham Park, and other elected boards to ensure that what we present and in the tax levy increase that we're presenting, is the smallest possible spending increase, but delivers the most sustainable long-term budget plan for the town. And I think part of that also is to educate the public on the existing fiscal cliff that we are facing in FY23. and educating people on where we are. And we have State of the Towns every year. But we're going to need to do more. We're going to need to have more community input, community forums. But, having residents understand that in Marblehead, the largest source of town revenue comes from property taxes. I mean, property taxes currently, 68% of town revenue comes from property taxes. State aid makes up 8%, and local receipts is 3%. Free cash, which we've been using as revenue to balance our operating expenses, at a 10% contribution. And then we have our debt service, excluded debt. But having residents understand that the liabilities on the expense side, for example, are, our contractual salaries and healthcare benefits are rising over 2.5% and have risen increasingly over the past, decade at least. And, our pension assessment forecasts at 8% year over year growth. And obviously in a town like Marblehead, we're not Hopkinton, and we can't raise, we can't just have new growth and new development factor into our tax levy. I mean, we're just limited in that way. And so we need to, first of all, make citizens and residents understand that reality. We need to be able to articulate a plan for a level funded budget that includes expense cuts if it doesn't cut, and those would be, in where are we making millions of dollars in cuts next year's budget if we don't pass an override? It will come from personnel and services. And presenting a contingent plan, contingent on a Proposition 2.5 override, presenting that budget, we will, that's our job, is to lead that conversation. And we need to also look to ways that we can lessen that burden for those least able to pay it, least able to afford the increase. We need to look to continue to find initiatives that reduce costs wherever possible.
I think we got the gist, and it was, thank you for putting a lot into a really overpackaged question. The picture of it all, because we know we're kind of looking at this sort of challenge. And I think, Alexa, I'm going to bring it around to you, but I actually want to sort of tweak it just a little bit as you answer, because as Erin was trying to do ably, is some of the things where you're just like, same for me on some of that. I'd love to tie this into the comment you made earlier about the town, the select board's sort of responsibility, and I use that term in air quotes, with regard to the road to town meeting, the town warrant. So maybe you can still talk about how you see the select board in the management of the Prop 2.5 process, but how do you think you'll show up as a select board member in that vein of how are we keeping everybody tuned in to how this is going to work, and what's town meeting? How do you think this comes to town meeting? What's the select board? How do you show up for that? Because it's going to be an interesting year, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. So I think really for any sort of process such as this, I take it very seriously from the perspective of what you're asking from the taxpayer and what the meaning is behind it, what the implication is, and what that is. I think that, really one of the very first things is doing a complete comprehensive dive into, what are the factors that necessitated the consideration of a general override before we, go to the motion of supporting it, or, begin that discussion. I think Erin did a nice job of actually highlighting some of those things, those rising costs that are, just have been something that we have to factor in, and we have to take that into consideration. But, I think that's really getting that information and presenting that to the town citizens and having that conversation first and foremost is really important before you start to move forward with action. I think you have to be able to communicate a detailed explanation as to why the board would take this action, and really considering and looking at, what are other cost saving opportunities that might exist? Are there any combining resources types opportunities? Really being able to get to the point where we are able to say we've looked and explored all options to benefit the town as best as possible. And a process such as this really is it's a long process. Having been involved years ago in a override campaign for a school project, you really are looking for getting that information, communicating it, continuing that work of answering those questions, making sure that you are coming forth with as much information as you can possibly provide, and also really engaging the community at every single level and ways that you can reach them where they are. And I think that's really important too, meaning there is a great social media type group that's where they're getting their information from. However, that's not everyone. And, whether it be email, whether it be town email, whether it be select forums, I think the role of the select board is to look at it from this, 30,000 foot view and say, okay, so we want to engage everyone and allow people to have a voice in this process and feel ownership in this process. Well, how do you do that? How do you engage that communication piece? Well, you do have to meet people where they are. And if you don't, then they're standing at the end of the process saying, wait, I didn't really get to understand what was going on. I didn't really get to get my voice heard. I didn't really hear, the entire process. So, I think for the select board, guiding that and on the early side of the process. So, and really being able to take that information and that feedback that you get and being able to implement it, taking those ideas, taking that into real consideration as we then integrate that with the different departments and all of the different organizations and boards that are part of, that really have to be part of this process and part of prioritizing, how these are really hard, difficult decisions, and everyone is going to be bringing forth, a different level of priority based on what their individual needs are. So taking that information and then being able to turn around and communicate it out to the public. So, I think there's a lot of
what's interesting, and I love the comments, and we from a different lens entirely. And Aaron, you mentioned earlier, sort of the reporter has made changes and now they tend to operate, and it affects us as a local town. And we've got lots of grassroots efforts to think about how to get messaging out. So I'm already bubbling with power up thoughts of maybe we'll have more Zoom forum like this where we could take topics and let people get into deep dives. So love hearing the sense that this isn't going to be easy. We have to be transparent. We have to be creative in how we get messaging out. We have to be forthright and forthcoming. Brett, with the risk of saying, so what do you have to say that hasn't been said that's new and different on this sticky topic? Brett, we'll bring it over to you for comments on this road ahead at the override, and how do we go through this together with our select board leaders and come out all still liking each other?
I don't know about that last part, but I'll do my best. All right, I'm not a miracle worker. First and foremost, what Aaron and Alexis said, spot on. I 100% agree with it. I'm not going to reiterate. It's a top-down, bottom-up approach. Have to involve everybody. However, I think this is where the leadership is going to come in. And I, as a select board member, am not going to come back to the citizens, or I could not vote as part of one of five to support an override unless I know the town has done everything and done a deep dive. And I think people who have gone to my Brett Murray for Marblehead Select Board on the Facebook, page, you'll see the last time the town has done an assessment of any deep dive was back in 1989 with a Crescent. Okay. That's where our town administrator was born. That's where we actually took away a lot of the elected positions and made them appointed positions. The only one being the town clerk to keep that independent. So that was the last time the town has done a big deep dive. So we really need to get an independent study. So unless the town does an independent study, I cannot go back to the voters to say, this is what needs to be fixed, because we just don't know what needs to be fixed. We saw the Clifton report in the finance department, and it was a very slight sliver. It hit upon a few things, but there's so much more that we can do. Do we have the right training? Do we have the right personnel? Do we need to do more outsourcing? Do we need to hire more people? We have to fix this. We just can't go back and say we need more money. So unless we can do that, I might support a minor override to give us another year to do that assessment. I'm not going to go back to the town for a full amount unless we can do a deeper dive to really fix this. Because if that's where leadership comes in. You're not just going to get more money. You have to say, this is what the money is going to be used for, and this is where we're going to, how the money is going to be used over the next coming years. Because it's been over 17 years since we've had a general override, and you don't get that many bites at an apple. If we're going to do this, we have to do it right, as Erin and Alexa said, and it's got to be, this is the one shot. And so that's why I say we have to approach it smartly, and we have to have the right information, and we have to involve everybody, and we have to educate. And I think that starts with having an independent assessment done, just like Cressup in 1989, but now we have to do it in 2022 or 2020.
Super helpful. So we also have the sense of it's not inevitable until we do the work to detail what's needed, which is helpful and probably a good way to sort of park that question. Because we're near to the end of our time, I want to swing back to, we kind of jumped forward because the earlier conversation kind of got us right into the specifics. I'm going to just go back and ask the question that we gave to Jean-Jacques a little bit. In a quick sort of 30-second snapshot, if you were, if we were to ask your best friend or your favorite boss, why should Marbleheaders vote for you? Brett, what would they say?
I think they say I'm passionate. I like to have fun. Willing to put in the time and do the work. And I think that's important. It's you got to like what you do, and even with people I don't get along with, I can play nicely in the sandbox, and I think that's important. I don't take things personally if somebody challenged me on something. We all don't get along with ideas. This election has been about ideas. That's really what I've been focusing on. And so I think, it's just being open, it's listening, keeping an open mind, but it's willing to challenge and raise ideas. And again, I don't have all the ideas, but I'm willing to listen because, I have ideas, but there's better ones out there. And if there are, I will, but I think that's what my best friends and colleagues would say.
Awesome. Alexa, what's your best friend, favorite boss say about why vote for Alexa?
Okay. Well, I think the biggest thing would be just my commitment to the town in general, and just a clear performance and record of working for the town, being committed for the town, and, being approachable, accessible, doing my homework, and really feeling passionate about being a voice for the citizens of Marblehead. I think the Board of Selectmen was started in, 1648, and, now the current select board, but the whole idea behind it was really to have this government where you had 5 people working as a team. Everyone's not going to be the same, and that's okay, but we want to have a level of respect. We want to have a level of understanding that we're bringing something to the table, 4 other people are bringing something to the table, and hopefully we can take a piece of everything that someone is bringing and make magic with that. And I will and do work well with the people that I am committed to being on, and have so for the town of Marblehead, and lots of different boards and lots of different committees outside of the Board of Selectmen and the current select board now. And I also feel that I definitely bring that to the select board currently. And that's really important to me.
Excellent. Erin, your best friend, favorite boss. Why vote for Erin? What would they tell us?
I think that they would say the same, that I like to be a consensus builder. But doesn't mean I'm always gonna, acquiesce to the majority of the board. If I have an informed, strong opinion, or I just think it's, think differently. I'm happy to and perfectly willing to be in the minority on a decision. I really enjoy informed, spirited debate. I've tried to bring that this year to the board. I think that if I was from another perspective, I think I bring the fresh perspective of a family living in town, with raising family in the public schools and using the services of the government in that way, as a family does. I think that I've tried to be a visible member of the select board. I enjoy attending other town board meetings and networking with active civic groups like Power Up and others. I try to ask thoughtful questions and just encourage that discussion that is what makes us all better and come to the best eventual consensus.
Excellent. And we appreciate all your answers. In collaboration and transparently, I'm going to give it back to Megan, my co-facilitator. But thank you for allowing me to have my part of the conversation with you. It's been great with all of you. Megan, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I too have enjoyed the conversation. It's just, I was making notes as everybody was talking, because I feel like, and we're talking about your everyday responsibilities and running the operations of the town, and trying to do our very best. And the themes that are coming out from all of you are so welcome, and including Jean-Jacques, is the embracing of new ideas, and not taking it personally if you disagree, but let's talk about this new idea and figure out how we can come up with a solution. The accountability and transparency pieces are huge for us, because that is something that we really do believe in and Power Up. I like the idea of, and you've all said it, is the welcoming of the community members, and to hear our voices and to hear our concerns, and how that's important in our view is two ways. One is, like I said, in the everyday daily operations of managing the town, but also all of those pieces fit in when something goes wrong. And we're all there, we're all working as a team, and we're all sharing those new ideas, and we're listening to each other. And when there is a challenge that we need to face, we've already established such solid, productive working relationships that no problem is too large. And if we all work together, we will come through that as a better, even as a town and as a community. So I really appreciate hearing all of those themes and all of your answers. So thank you. And in a wrap up, so wonderful conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as we did. I know we put a lot of time and effort into these questions, and the candidates put a lot of time and effort into their responses. I heard it, I hear their passion, I hear their commitment, and it's just wonderful. I love this season. I love getting involved in the elections. Make sure that if you haven't already, candidates, maybe drop in your name and contact information, or Facebook, your social media address, so that people can find you if they have some follow-up questions. Just a reminder to everybody that we did not have time for questions. I know we have in our past, but it's already 8:20. So we don't have time to answer your questions. However, we do encourage you to reach out to the candidates, and we will be saving the chat, which I see there's several questions in there now, so that we can allow the candidates to answer more thoughtfully.
Yeah, hey Megan, I did a quick monitor of chat and there was one question that reminded us of, I think we meant to say, all of the candidates were invited.
Oh, yes.
And a couple of candidates let us know that they regretted they couldn't attend, and a couple of candidates didn't reply. And my mother had things to say to me about when I should say things and when I shouldn't. That's where I'm leaving that. So the people you see and the people that Megan mentioned that couldn't be here but sent regrets are those people.
No.
But we invited everyone.
Yes, yes, we did. Everybody and all of the two boards. And that's why we did it 2 nights, to make sure that we could have these thoughtful conversations and to allow, because everybody's schedules are a little bit crazy. So yes, everybody was invited. And again, for people that came late, Jimmy Full wanted to be here very much. His work schedule, unfortunately, just sort of fell apart around 6:30 tonight. So in the chat should be his name and phone number and email. He wants to hear from anybody that has questions. So I think without further ado, I just want to say thank you again for the candidates. I thoroughly enjoyed this forum. I thank you for all the people that were here and listening. I hope that you will absolutely find your polling place, check your registration, your voter registration, and most importantly, show up to vote on June 21st. It is so incredibly important. And if you are so bold, I would love it if you got 10 people in your networks to come vote with you, or just remind them to vote. It makes such a difference. We will see you again tomorrow night, same time. I think everybody should have the link, and if you don't, then email me. But we will have the moderator, Board of Health, and school committee tomorrow. And once again, all candidates were invited, and we'll have a few people show up tomorrow so we can talk a little bit more about that. Enjoy your evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you.
It's great. It's really nice to have the opportunity.
Oh, I loved it.
Megan, I just want to